Hello everybody and welcome to another YouTube video. So in today's video, I'm going to be going through everything that I have learned over the past 10 years of programming. Now I started to program back in 2011 when I was only 11 years old. Obviously not doing anything very complicated, but this is kind of where my journey began, and you're going to see this has been a long journey with lots of difficulties, and it makes a very interesting story. Anyways, hopefully as I go through this video, I'll give you kind of a curriculum or outline of things you may want to learn. However, if you are new to programming or looking to upgrade your skills, you should check out programmingexpert.io from the link in the description. This is a brand new course that I have just released with the Algo Expert team. We've been working on this for like 6 months. It has a ton of awesome content, and it gives you a complete structure and guide on one page of pretty much everything you need to know to master programming. Any support you guys could provide would be awesome. I'm super passionate about this. And again, if you guys are new to programming or just trying to get better, definitely check this out, programmingexpert.io. Anyways, with that said, let's go back to 2011 and I will tell you what I remember back then when I was learning how to code. Alright, so the details in the first few years here might be slightly inaccurate because my memory is not that good, but I do know that back in 2011, this is kind of when I started to realize that I wanted to get into some type of STEM-related field. I really hated art. I hated anything creative. I hated music and English and all of that, but I loved math. I loved science, and I really liked building stuff. I liked doing kind of like mechanical engineering type work. Now, what I was doing back then was working with Lego robots. I was making like model cars, catapults, anything that had like a little engineering kind of sense to it, I really enjoyed. And so this is how I got my first taste of programming, because I was working with Lego robotics, and you can program those. You can make them so they go forward, or so if the sensor's activated, it turns to the left, or it picks something up. And that's kind of how I got into programming back then, was I had this block-based editor, and I would say, okay, turn the motor 360 degrees. Okay, if the sensor is activated, back up, whatever. You guys get what I'm saying? But that was the first introduction to programming back in 2011. Alright, so fast forward to 2012, I am 12 years old, and this is when I start actually looking at HTML and CSS. Now, I don't know exactly how I ended up getting to this topic, but I do remember that I was very obsessed with learning at that age. I would come home from school, immediately go on my laptop, start watching all kinds of YouTube videos, and just like experimenting with stuff and looking at all kinds of different topics and areas. So I probably was Googling like, what is coding? Or like, how does a computer work? Or something like that, and ended up coming across an HTML and CSS tutorial. Now, I remember very clearly that this tutorial was from Bucky. In fact, I watched like hundreds of Bucky's videos when I was a kid. Some of you may know his channel. I'll put it up on the screen. Anyways, I ended up learning the basics of HTML, the basics of CSS, and in my mind, I am programming. I am writing code, and I am like, mega genius at 12 years old. At least that's what I thought. So I started messing with that stuff. I'm really interested in it, and I just love the fact that I can go on my computer, type in a few lines of code, and see something appear in my web browser. I really don't have any good idea of what I'm doing. I'm just watching a ton of video tutorials, and that's pretty much all that's happening in 2012. So fast forward to 2013, I've now done a bunch of HTML and CSS. I'm able to make some very basic web pages and kind of style them to some level, and I start looking at JavaScript and PHP. Now, JavaScript clearly is kind of a natural follow-up from HTML. I'm now handling events on the website. So when you click the button, maybe I'm showing you a pop-up, or I'm generating a random number, or I'm doing something relatively trivial with JavaScript. And then after JavaScript, I'm like, okay, well now I know how to kind of handle stuff on the website. How can I make a functioning website that's going to maybe store data? So I start looking at PHP. Now, I don't look at PHP for very long. This is really complicated to me. I don't really understand databases and all that kind of stuff. And what ends up happening now in 2013 is I start to realize that I don't really like working on websites. I'm not a fan of HTML. I'm not a fan of kind of designing stuff and aesthetics. I really liked the JavaScript programming and the PHP. That was way more fun to me, working kind of the logic in the back end of the website. Again, I know it's not really the back end, but in my mind, it was behind the scenes because I didn't actually see the code that I was writing. And so what I did is start looking for stuff that was kind of similar to that I could mess around with. So eventually I found VBS, which is a Visual Basic script, and I started writing kind of like little viruses or prank scripts that I could run on my friend's computer. So for example, I would write a script that would like constantly open the disk drive. So it would open the disk drive, and then if you push it in, it would open it again. Or it would like rapidly toggle the caps lock button so you couldn't type something. Obviously, I didn't leave these running on the computers. I would just put them on, kind of like prank them and then turn them off. But that's what I was doing at that age. Now, I also ended up jailbreaking a bunch of people's iPods. I started kind of looking at more of the hacking side of technology and trying to manipulate stuff that I would use every day as opposed to creating brand new things. All right, so that was 2013. I'm kind of this immature child that's decent at like technology, has some technology literacy, and is like messing with people and making pranks and kind of VBS scripts and stuff like that. And now we fast forward to 2014, where I start eventually learning C#. Now again, this is coming from the realization that I really don't like web development. The only thing I did like of it was pretty much the JavaScript. And so I've got through my VBS stage. I'm not really that interested in kind of pranking people anymore. And what I want to do is learn a legitimate programming language. So I end up coming across C#, don't really know how, and start trying to learn that for probably 6 months to a year. So anyways, I'm learning C#, I'm continuing to kind of get better at it. I'm learning about a strongly typed language. I'm getting into stuff like functions, arguments, parameters, and a lot of words that I just don't even understand at the age of 14. And well, it's taking me a really long time to learn this. I'm finding this really challenging, but that's why I keep learning it, because it's kind of one of the first things that I've found that is difficult and that's really testing my mind and my ability. So anyways, I learned C# for pretty much the entire year. By the end of learning this for about, 6-8 months, whatever, I'm working on graphical user interfaces, kind of messing around with .NET technology. I'm making stuff like calculators. I'm making stuff like, graphing programs that can graph like a line. And at this point, I believe I'm probably in grade 9, and I'm showing this to some of my friends, showing it to my parents, all that kind of stuff. Anyways, that's pretty much all I can remember from 2014. Now let's go to 2015. So in 2015, I'm now probably entering grade 10 in high school, and I'm taking my first computer science course in high school. So in this course, we're learning ActionScript. Now, ActionScript is something that allows you to program Flash games. I already have a programming fundamental base. I kind of know functions. I know basic programming concepts. So this course is very, very easy for me. And so I'm always kind of asking the teacher, hey, what can I do next? Is there anything more difficult? Can you challenge me? And he says, hey, maybe you should join the computer science club. So in grade 10, I joined the computer science club. And in this club, they're actually preparing you to write a competition called the CCC. Now, the CCC is the Canadian Computing Competition hosted by the University of Waterloo. It's pretty much like 5 data structures and algorithm questions. You get like 3 hours to answer them. And depending on how many test cases you pass on all of the questions, you could get invited to round 2, where you actually go to the University of Waterloo and compete against like the best high school programmers. Anyways, I realized very quickly that I can't actually write this competition in C#, which is kind of my main programming language at this point. And so I asked my teacher, hey, what language should I learn? Because they don't have that as an option for me to submit my code with. And he says, well, you should probably learn Python. That's what we're going to be doing next year in computer science and the year after. And Python is just a pretty easy language to learn for beginners. So this is where I start getting into Python. I absolutely love Python as soon as I pick it up, and I study it for a few months before eventually writing the CCC competition that I end up doing very, very poorly on. I hadn't really prepared for it very much. It was pretty challenging. A lot of these questions were kind of math heavy as well, and they increase in difficulty from 1 to 5. So I probably successfully answered like the first 2 questions and then completely failed the rest of them. But I remember being motivated to kind of come back the next year and try to do better. So that's pretty much 2015. This is when I started taking programming a bit more serious. It's kind of more of a serious hobby now. I'm doing it almost every day, and I'm really, really enjoying it and starting to realize that this is probably a career path for me. All right, so now we go to 2016. Now, 2016, I'm 16 years old. I am in grade 11, and I'm taking my computer science course in grade 11. Now, in this course, we're learning basic Python. I already know all of this because I've been continually learning Python since that competition last year. And again, I sign up for the computer science club, where I'm going to compete in the CCC. Now, this year in the CCC, I do much better. I'm a few points away from actually being invited to kind of the next round at University of Waterloo. I'm starting to get way better at programming. I'm learning stuff like Pygame. I'm learning Python modules. I'm learning object-oriented programming, and I'm really starting to kind of dive headfirst into this field and realize that I really enjoy this and I really want to be good at this. Now, other than that, I'm probably just working on some larger Python projects, and actually, I believe at this point in time, I start looking into Xcode and developing iOS applications. So I remember I wanted to make an iOS app that would allow me to like categorize photos of my textbooks. So this is kind of a little tangent, but I'll tell it because it's an interesting story. So I always had to walk to school. My walk was like 20 to 25 minutes. So I hated having to carry my textbooks because they were super heavy and it was really annoying to walk home with the textbooks. So what I did is I would always take photos of any of the homework pages from my textbook, so I never had to carry them home. I could just do them off my phone. But then I would go to my camera roll and I would have like hundreds of photos and I wouldn't be able to find the page. So I wanted to make an iOS app for my phone where I could just like take a picture of the textbook page and it would automatically like group it into like sections or subjects and give me the page number and all of that. So I ended up working on that for like 6 months, actually ended up making the app and it worked successfully and I put it on my phone. So that was kind of a cool tangent, kind of a side project going on where I was learning Swift and Objective-C and just messing around with Xcode and eventually creating this, very simple app, but something I was pretty proud of. Anyways, I think that's pretty much it for 2016. Now let's go to 2017. All right, so 2017 is probably one of the most important years in my life so far. I'm only 21, so take that with a grain of salt. But anyways, this is grade 12. This is when I really start to get passionate about computer science. I know I'm going to go to school for computer science next year. I've already applied to a bunch of universities, and I'm in my grade 12 computer science course. I'm learning big O notation, data structures and algorithms. I'm continuing to work with a ton of Python modules, and I'm just a much more confident and competent programmer. At this point in time, I also start working at a summer camp as a STEM program coordinator. Now, this means I'm actually running a coding specialty and I'm teaching kids between the age of 11 and 15 how to code at a summer camp. And I'm actually teaching them Python code, so a real programming language. And this is when I realized that I really enjoy teaching. I'm super happy doing that. And so I start the YouTube channel where I start teaching Python to, well, all of you. Now, at some point in time during this year, I start posting more and more videos on YouTube. This would be when I created something like the golf game that some of you may have seen on this channel. It's a Python kind of like mini golf game. Anyways, I'm working on a lot of larger projects. I'm getting way better at coding. And again, starting to really realize, okay, this is a career path. This is what I want to do. And then I eventually get into the University of Ottawa for computer science, as well as a few other universities. I do choose U Ottawa. And now we'll go to 2018, where I start my first year of university. All right, so 2018, first year of university. I'll also mention the summer before going to university, I did my second year of the STEM program coordinator at the summer camp, which was great. Again, continuing to post some YouTube videos for the kids at the camp. Then I get to university, I'm taking my first year computer science courses, so introduction to computing, I'm taking linear algebra, calculus, all of that type of stuff. I'm living in residence in a big, huge building with like hundreds of people in kind of like apartment style. I have a roommate, and this is when I really start getting serious about my YouTube channel. So I realized quite quickly into university that studying for courses is not going to take up nearly enough of my time. I just really had a lot of extra time in university. I was playing video games. I was wasting it doing a bunch of stuff that I wasn't proud of doing. And so what I did instead was say, okay, what can I do that's going to be productive, that I'm going to enjoy, and that's going to help me in the future? And my answer to that was my YouTube channel. So at this point in time, I had like 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers, but I really enjoyed posting on there and coming up with the educational content. So I said to myself, I'm going to post a YouTube video every single day for as long as I can. So the unfortunate thing though was I had a roommate. We're in this big apartment style building, and so it's really loud throughout the day, and I just wasn't really able to record when my roommate's in the room, and it just didn't work out very well for me to be recording at normal times. So what I had to do is wake up at 5:30 a.m. every single morning for as long as I could and film YouTube videos between the hours of like 5:30 and 8 or 9 a.m. and then start the rest of my day. Now, this completely changed my life. I got to a point where I was being so extremely productive. I could probably do what I would normally do in a week in like 6-7 hours a day. I was grinding really, really hard, but it completely paid off. And over that first year of university, or at least that first semester, I grew my YouTube channel for like 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers to like 15, 20, 25, 30K. And I think by the time I ended first year of university, which is going to be 2019, I probably had like 30 or 40,000 subscribers on YouTube. Anyways, at this point, since I'm doing so many YouTube videos, I'm learning Flask, I'm learning Django, I'm learning Python web development, I'm getting into a ton of other Python modules, and I'm really expanding my programming knowledge. I'm learning math, I'm learning Git, and I'm just learning a ton of stuff because of the amount of time that I'm spending working. Anyways, now we move to 2019. Now, 2019 is going to be like end of first year, beginning of second year university. Now, in between that, I'm working at the summer camp for the third time as a STEM program coordinator. And this is when I'm continuing to grow the YouTube channel. And now I'm sitting with a YouTube channel that has like, multiple 10,000 subscribers. So I'm feeling good about that. I'm posting a ton more content. I'm starting to learn stuff like machine learning, artificial intelligence. I'm learning like TensorFlow, scikit-learn, PyTorch, all of that type of stuff. I'm now partnering with companies like Free Code Camp. I'm sure many of you know them, and really just starting to kind of get involved in the programming community and start to learn most of my stuff on my own rather than from school. So of course, as I'm in university, I'm learning, computing too, which means I'm learning stuff like Java. I'm learning data structures and algorithms in a formal course, so I'm using Java for that as well. I'm learning programming paradigms, so I'm learning languages like Go, like Haskell, like OCaml. I'm kind of diving into all of these university courses, but at the same time, I'm doing a ton of work on my own and kind of just getting better at programming on the side with side projects and all the YouTube videos that I'm posting. So now near the end of 2019, this is when I actually start looking for internships for 2020. I really want to work as a software engineer, ideally at a large tech company. I'm targeting like a Google, Microsoft, Amazon, whatever, but I'm also totally fine to go to a local company. So I interviewed at Shopify, at IBM, at Bell actually, which was close to where I was living at the time in Ottawa. Anyways, I was doing a ton of interviews and I started practicing my data structures and algorithms and doing like the coding interview type questions where I actually used AlgoExpert. Now, this is when I started a relationship with Clement. This is when I did a video on his channel with like a mock Google coding interview, and I started getting way better at these types of questions, and then eventually ended up getting an interview at Microsoft, and some of you know how that goes, but now we're going to go to 2020 where I'll talk about that. All right, so 2020, I am continuing to grind for my technical interviews. I'm doing all kinds of data structures and algorithms type problems, doing almost all of the ones on AlgoExpert. Anyways, then I end up getting flown to Microsoft for my in-person technical interviews. This is in January, before the pandemic is really known in the world. So I do them, end up passing those technical interviews. I get a job offer from Microsoft. 3 days later, I do my technical interviews at Shopify, end up getting one from them as well. I ended up deciding to choose Microsoft because I was excited to actually go in person to Microsoft to work there. Of course, we know that didn't end up happening. Regardless though, then the pandemic happens, kind of puts everything on pause for, I guess, like a month or so. That's probably an accurate timeline. I end up moving back home away from school, so out of Ottawa, doing school remotely and continuing to learn computer science stuff from school, right? So I'm learning languages like Golang now. I'm learning about programming language concepts, computer architecture, digital systems, all that kind of fun stuff, and continuing to work on the YouTube channel, which at this point in time probably has about 150,000 subscribers. Okay, continuing, I go to Microsoft. I'm working on the Python extension for Visual Studio Code, an absolutely great fit for me. At Microsoft, we're using TypeScript and JavaScript for the entire extension, so I end up learning TypeScript and working in that for about 3 or 4 months. Okay, so after leaving Microsoft, because that was just a summer internship, I now start school again. I am now doing my first semester of third year, so I'm learning some other programming stuff there, although nothing super notable, and I end up actually getting a job at AlgoExpert as an algorithms instructor, which I am doing while I am running my YouTube channel and while I am going to school. So I'm extremely busy. I'm working like 12 hours days every single day, just really grinding because I have a job, school, as well as the YouTube channel, which is pretty much a full-time job as well. And I end up doing that until I finish my first semester of third year, and then I drop out of school. All right, so 2021, this year, I am now dropped out of school. I am so happy I finally have some time back in my life. I'm not as stressed as I was before. Long story short on that decision, I was generating a significant amount of revenue and it just really didn't make sense to be in school anymore. This was not a, on the whim decision. This was something that had been thought about for a long time. Anyways, I continue working at AlgoExpert as an algorithms instructor, so continuing to develop my, algorithms data structure knowledge. I then really start getting into front-end frameworks, learning stuff like React, learning a bit more about styling and CSS, and really working on kind of full-stack web applications that you guys would have seen me release at kind of end of 2020, beginning of 2021 on the YouTube channel. Of course, I'm continuing to work on the YouTube channel, and then I start working on Programming Expert. Now, Programming Expert I talked about at the beginning of this video. Essentially, it's an entire platform to learn how to code, and I started planning that as early as February of last year. So we kind of had the idea, signed all the logistical contracts and all of that, then started coming up with the curriculum and building that out pretty much for the entire year until we released it just, I guess, about a week ago from when I'm filming this video. Anyways, you can check it out from programmingexpert.io, but that's what I've been working on for a very long time, which means really in this year, I haven't been learning a lot related to programming. I've been focusing on building this product, working on the YouTube channel, expanding the business, and yeah, that's what I've been doing. Now, as a side note, I actually ended up moving out of my parents' house to my own place. That was kind of a huge thing that I did at the beginning of the year. And now I am pretty well done with this video and everything that I went through. Now, this video did not turn out exactly how I planned for it to be. It was kind of more of a life story than it was necessarily, what I've learned programming, although it did start in that way. Regardless, I hope it gave some value to you guys, and I just want to quickly tell you what I'm planning for 2022 in case you've stuck around till the end of this video. So for 2022, my main goals here are to improve my front-end development skills. I really want to learn more about front-end frameworks. I want to learn more about JavaScript and CSS and be more comfortable working on the front end of websites because I think I have the back-end skills down pretty well. I want to continue to improve programmingexpert.io. Again, you can find it from the link in the description. I want to be practicing Golang. Go is kind of the next language I really want to transition into. And then I want to do some more work on blockchain and cryptocurrency, which is actually what I've been working on a little bit right now. And I have a series planned for you guys where I'm going to be teaching you Solidity and how to actually host your own smart contracts and work with cryptocurrency. Regardless, with that said, that is going to end this video. This video has taken a long time to make. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment with your journey learning how to code down below, and I will see you in another YouTube video.